Well, our guest speaker today is former Congressman Doug Ose. He's been very involved in his community. He was a Rotarian for 30 years. He's been a member of 5 local chambers of commerce. He's helped lead the effort to make Citrus Heights a city, served as a member of the Sacramento First 5 Commission, and coached youth soccer for over 20 years. He served 3 terms in Congress after being elected in 1998 and then promised to return to private life, which he did. And in 2011, he assumed the operations of Gibson Ranch Regional Park as a private, public-private partnership. And now he's decided to run for Congress again. As you know, back in May, we had the current congressman representing our area, Guerra. And so today we welcome Doug Ose.
Thank you, Linda. There we go. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to the Chamber for allowing me the opportunity to come and visit with you. It's always a delight to come and see so many, I don't want to say old friends, but I'm at that point where you kind of go old friends. But as I look around the room and I see Bernie and I see the Davises and I see Tim and I see so many of you, it feels like old home week. So, Tom, nice to see you. I knew as soon as I started I'd leave somebody out. But, anyway, I want to thank you. And I also want to, happy hour painting. Where'd you go? Ah, there's a campaign manager right there. That was great. I imagine at the end of the hour, the quality was a little less than at the start. So, Linda, I want to thank you for the invitation to come today. I do want to share with you a couple of things that I'm concerned about. First of all, I know that the Commerce Chamber is a C4. So, C6, okay, C4 is C6. I know you have some concerns. And I'm very careful about the positions that I put the organizations invite me to speak into. It's based on a concern of mine having to do with personal experience. Suffice it to say that when it became clear that I was interested in running for Congress, and this is the absolute truth, 3 weeks later I got a call from the IRS and I had an audit. So it's all right, it took me 11 meetings in 7 weeks and I got a no adjustment letter, but my remarks are going to be crafted in such a way as to not jeopardize anything you guys are involved in. So it just seems to be the way it is. So, with that, let me tell you about Gibson Ranch. In the spring of 2010, it became apparent to me that local government was struggling, as was all government, and so was small business. And being a small business owner, you can kind of connect the dots. And you can see opportunity as well as peril. You guys have all lived through that in the last 5 or 6 years. So have I. Well, Gibson Ranch, essentially ran into a wall. And their fiscal situation deteriorated so badly that they had to make choices between the services that they were prepared to provide to the local electorate. One of the services that was on the chopping block was regional parks, and one of the regional parks that was focused in on was Gibson Ranch. So on the day after Labor Day in 2010, the county made the difficult decision to close the park. Close the gate. Nobody gets access. My reaction to that was, like, are you kidding me? Why are you doing this? So I thought about it a little bit. Long story short, the county closed the park because they didn't have the money to build it. However, if your property goes through their property for the business and their reason, also have the obligations on this, as you know, it's also into that. The county was continuing to spend just over $215,000 a year to keep the park closed. And I pointed that out. Okay. So, and it's understandable. I mean, you have to fight you have to maintain some sort of fire prevention program. In anticipation of hopefully someday the park will be open and you don't want to do it to flowers, things like that. My approach to doing it, I said, look, why don't you make the property to me? I'll take the revenue. I'll help you repair the maintenance that's accumulated over the last 125 years. I'm not making money when you repair it, you just do it. And then at the end of 10 years, I'll do the right thing. It'll be a much better condition than it is today. And people will have to visit us and so on April, it took me 7 months, but I finally got them to say yes. Used to be across the aisle. I was confronted with Sacramento E's loud opposition. I was confronted with opposition in place to assert relationship with some of the groups along the American Road Parkway. These opposition was founded based on the belief that private operators should control public property and asked me to look at this. What you're doing, the direct response to me at lunch at the property, she and I met a number of anyway, long story short, I went this way with the supervisor to say yes. And they took it on faith. They looked at us over 35 years of business here in Sacramento, and they knew I had a track record of delivering, and if I didn't get it right the first time, I'd get it right the second. So they had faith that I could do it. I put together a team. On April 1st of 2011, we opened the park. We were literally things where the boat was just dead in the water. We were stopped. The park grass was this high. The garbage hadn't been picked up since September of last year, the previous year, and I know that because I brought out a couple newspapers and mine and stuck them in a garbage can just to test the concept whether or not the garbage was getting picked up. And no, it had not been. My newspapers were still there. We involved a number of entities, some of which you are familiar with. For instance, we engaged the services of a lawn man to come out and help us stand the park up. And they did a great job helping us get the grass under control and the irrigation system fixed and trimming the trees and making it a presentable landscape again. We ran to 27 homeless men who were living in the park, out of the park. You know, sometimes things trickle up to the top, and that was my job. We fixed the cabins. We cut the grass. We hauled the garbage out. We cleaned the bathrooms. We fixed the entry gate. We got the electricity working. We rebuilt fences. And lo and behold, the people of Sacramento County responded. And from that time to today, so a little over 3 years, we've had over 250,000 individuals visit that park. Now, one of the lessons we learned is that things are never quite as simple as they seem, especially when you take on something that was supposed to have been taken care of and nothing. We have had to deal with broken water lines, broken sewer lines, buildings that have collapsed. We've had structures that have literally fallen down in the middle of the night. We have our electricity go out. And when you have livestock, which we do, we have about 60 horses we board out there. When you have livestock and your electricity goes out and you're relying on a well to deliver water, you have a problem. So, and I will give, I don't know if anybody here from SMUD, but my compliments to SMUD, because they know which properties have livestock on them, and they are Johnny on the spot responding when power goes down. So SMUD does an excellent job in terms of making sure we have power to run our water pumps, our wells, so we have water for our livestock. We fixed the ranch house. One of the interesting side notes of the ranch house, it's about a 3,500 square foot building, carved up into 2 rooms with a little kitchen. Senator Coburn from Oklahoma, prior to me being involved, identified a project that the county had undertaken to remodel the ranch house as an example of wasteful government spending. And I think he was right. Because what the federal government had done was, under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, budgeted somewhere around $450,000 to refurbish a 3,500 square foot clubhouse. Okay. On the surface, that sounds pretty good. My reaction was, why don't you keep 150,000 of that? I'll just bulldoze the building and we'll rebuild it from scratch. To which I was unable to get a positive response. So the federal government went ahead and spent the $450,000. The building has been remodeled and rehabbed. We put it back into use. Starting from a standstill on April 1st of 2011, our annual revenues from all activities are now approaching $500,000 a year. And that's based on $5 a car when people come in, rental cabins at $50 a night, horse boarding fees that vary from $225 a month to $395 a month, and the desire of people to have a location where they can enjoy active and passive recreation. We partner with the Cherry Island Soccer Group to have youth soccer tournaments. We partner with the Sacramento Valley Women's Soccer League, where they have their leagues take place. We rebuilt 2 soccer fields so they could do that. We do an enormous amount of stuff with Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. We've had up to 600 scouts out there at any given time, and it's just an incredible sight when you come around the corner and here's all these little tents pitched out there on the grass, and it's all just straight and narrow and organized, and the kids are racing from here to there doing the chores. And then we've paired up with Eagle Scout candidates. I don't know, those of you who are public agencies or sit on boards of different entities that control property that is used by the public, but Eagle Scouts are an untapped resource in this community. We've had 10 or 12 of them earn their Eagle badges doing construction for the dog parks, for security purposes, for fixing the post and cable system that keeps people from driving out on the grass, and signage and stages and just all sorts of different things. Long story short, we turned what had the potential of being a real problem, a lemon, if you will, in the vernacular, into a lemonade, and we drink it every day. So I want to especially commend the Board of Supervisors for taking the decision they did, because it wasn't risk-free. This was a unique situation. At the time, it was literally the only public park in the state of California that had private management. Not a concession, but control, right? It was the only one that we could find. And your representatives at the local level thought outside the box. And I mean, obviously they looked at the and satisfied themselves that I could do it. But they thought outside the box and they said yes. And it's paid off. So now what are we doing out there at Gibson Range today? So if you go to Gibson Range today, you'll find that we have about 60 horses quartered. We have a young man. This is one of the success stories. I mean, if we didn't have anything else out of the park, the development that this young man has undergone would have been every ounce of effort. His name is Mikhail. Mikhail came to me as a 15-year-old boy. And he said, I want to rent 2 acres of your land. I want to put in a garden. and I want to sell the produce from that garden to my neighbors. And I said, Mikhail, what experience do you have? None. What do you know about gardening? Nothing. Where do you live? Oak Park. How are you going to get here? I don't know. I'm on the way. And I said, all right, Mikhail, we'll roll the dice. So today, Mikhail now has 2 acres under cultivation. He grows pumpkins, tomatoes, corn, radishes, carrots, watermelon, and a host of other things. He came to me last week and said, I need another 4 acres. And I said, Mikhail, you're crazy, man. And I said, no, I'm making money. So next year he's not going to have 2 acres, he's going to have 6 acres. So Mikhail has dealt with, I've tried to talk to him along the way, and I've given him some advice. Mikhail's now turned to his classmates in high school and said, I can't be everywhere at once. I need you to come work with me at the places where I'm selling my produce. And I'll put you on this corner, and you will go 3 miles down the road, and I'll put you on that corner. And then we'll go 3 miles this way, and I'll put you on that course. Now he's got 3 classmates who are now manning the stations where he's selling the produce, and he's giving them 25 or 30% of the proceeds. Ladies and gentlemen, we are creating an entrepreneur, a capitalist out there. So I just want to tell you, this young man's name is Mikhail Hart Katnick. Write that down. You are going to hear from him. Because this kid's going somewhere. He's a junior this year. He's already thinking about college. He's already told his parents, I'm going to college, in that tone of voice. And they've said, okay. And, those are the kinds of things we do out there. We have 5K runs. We have these, I don't know if you've seen them, I don't know, Paul, you covered them in the newspaper. Things like that. We do concerts. We do, we've developed a whole, what did not exist before now is this out there. Any of you who have intentions on marrying soon, or have family members who are looking to get married soon, we've had 43 weddings in the park this year in our facilities. It's a totally new revenue source for us. Whereas you might go down to Vizcaya or over to the Officers Club in McClellan or somewhere else and pay $12 or $15 or $20,000. We've identified our market as being somewhere in the $2,000 to $5,000 market. And ladies and gentlemen, we are swamped. We are swamped. Long story short, and then I'll be happy to take some questions. Long story short is, your supervisors recognized that they were in a position where they couldn't deliver service, and they figured out an alternative to do so. The message there being, more government's not the answer to all our problems. I think a corollary to that is leadership matters. These people stepped up and took a risk, and it paid off. And it wasn't stress-free, I'll tell you that. But leadership matters. And whether you're talking about your neighborhood, or your community, or your county, or your state, or your country. Leadership matters. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions. So thank you all for enduring this. Bob?
I want to ask you the same question I asked Mr. Barrow when he was here a couple months ago. To me, the Second Amendment is very important to me. And I want to know your position on my Second Amendment rights, my ability to pack a weapon, and also, you were picked apart pretty heavily in the primary. And I want to know why you were picked apart.
Yes, I want to be clear about this. I can't control the questions that come from the audience, and I have no objection to this question. So this is not part of the program that in any way, shape, or form would jeopardize the C6 status of the organization, in my opinion. So in the primary, there are, politics isn't beanbag, okay? It's just not, it's a tough business. Some of your opponents invariably will take some act or some vote that you've had in the past and attempt to portray it in the worst possible light. That's just the way it is. I mean, I got people who stalk me, basically, on my everyday journeys, and they attempt to provoke me into a response. That's just the way it is. In the primary, what Bob's referring to is one of my opponents in particular tried to take me to task for my positions on the Second Amendment, not realizing that I'm a lifetime member, excuse me, that's not the right phrase, a life member of the NRA, where I have actually put money up to protect the rights of Americans to keep and bear arms. Not realizing that, as many of you do, I possess a weapon at home. Not realizing that I have no intention of infringing on your right or your option to not have a weapon at home. And so we have to deal with that. That's just part of this. Just to answer your question directly, I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I always have been. I was one of those in Congress at the time who voted in favor of the resolution that said the citizens of the District of Columbia have the same rights under the Second Amendment as every other citizen in the United States to keep a weapon in their house. Judge me by what I do. I put my money up to protect yours and my Second Amendment rights. I'm not trying to take away your gun rights. I'm not trying to force you to own a weapon. But if you're a law-abiding citizen, the Constitution is very clear about your rights. And we're going to respect that. Yes, ma'am.
To switch gears a little bit, I was one of the first lifeguards out of Gibson Ranch back in the 1980s. And my question to you is, Parks and Recreation is not considered an essential function or essential need to providing a service to the community. How, in your opinion, would those of us who represent local parks and recreation areas be able to get our name to become more of an essential function to the people we serve?
So the question is, how do you make parks a more vital part of community activities?
How do you get people to recognize that if they don't have a park, you're going to end up with all kinds of terrible things happening?
Well, let me reverse the approach, if I may. My approach has always been to try to find a consumer interest and then deliver a product to meet that interest. So separate and apart from whether or not it's private industry delivering something or a nonprofit entity delivering something or government delivering something, I'm always looking for opportunities where a consumer is unable to get something she or he wants, and then trying to figure out whether or not I can fill that void. My view is that whether you're in private industry or a nonprofit or an autonomous independent park agency or whatever, you got to figure out what the consumer wants and then deliver it to them. And you can't fit a round peg into a square hole, because what works in Sierra Oaks isn't going to work in Folsom. What works in Folsom isn't going to work in Alberta. What works in Carmichael isn't going to work in Elk Grove, because the market always has its little nuances. And if you can identify those nuances and deliver programs to address the demands, I guarantee you will thrive. And you will be able to do it in such a way that as time goes by, your reliance on the taxpayer will shrink and your ability to sustain yourself will grow. And that's always been my objective out at Gibson Ranch. I mean, I get zero support from the government at Gibson Ranch. I have to find a way to pay the bills. And I'd encourage you to do the same. It's all about knowing your consumer. Who comes to your park? Yes, sir.
Well, what's your view on government partnering up with businesses to improve the economy? And if you support that, what are some innovative ways that could happen?
So the question is, are there opportunities where industry and government can pair up to improve the economy? I think to a very great degree there are unique skills that go into running a successful business, and there are unique skills that go into operating government properly. And there's not a great number of people who have skills to be successful in both. They just seem to, in most cases, be mutually exclusive. I was very careful at Gibson Range in establishing control such that I didn't have to go back to the county every time I wanted to do something. Because A, I didn't have time, because I was trying to respond to consumers. I didn't have time, and I just couldn't take the brain damage of doing that. I just couldn't take it. So I think government has a role, and part of the debate in campaigns is how broad or narrow should that role be. In my case, I think there are a number of things government does that private industry can do at least as equally well, and that we should move in the direction of making that happen. I don't think public safety is one of those. I do think parks offers an opportunity for that. I don't think national defense is one of those where a public-private partnership, if you will, would work. I don't think the justice system is one where a public-private partnership will work. I just think the folks who are in position of leadership need to clearly articulate what their vision is. All right? Industry will respond. I mean, private industry will respond. They will figure out, is there an opportunity for us to put our product to work here or there? But government has a role, I think, and the debate in this and every other election is it a broad role or a narrow role? I tend towards the narrow role. And I'm struggling to find a situation in which a government-industry partnership for capitalistic purposes works. Yes, sir.
Congressman, I have a question. I went to a veterans barbecue on Saturday, and before I went there, this has really been on my mind probably for the last week or so, but I had to literally remind myself that as a veteran, I was going to a barbecue, and within the last 6 months, we have traded terrorists for an American deserter, and also there's an American who was beheaded that we haven't retaliated for. So, to me, every value I've ever been raised with, why I served, the people I served under, it goes absolutely in an opposite direction to where we're going. And I wanted to get your take on what happened with the training of the terrorists and also too with ISIS, what your stance is.
And at 1:20, I'll tell you what the Dow's going to do tomorrow. My experience has been that in the United States of America, the result of passivity is chaos. Just the way it is. Something wrong happens in the world. Which phone rings? Is it the phone in Peking? Is it the phone in Moscow? Is it the phone in France? No. It's the phone in Washington, D.C. Our non-governmental organizations that respond to any emergency around the world, where are they based? It's the American Red Cross. Who is it that provides all the humanitarian aid when nobody else can get there? It's the United States Navy. So, in answer to David's question about leadership, without getting into the details of the Foley murder, I mean, we could talk about ISIS alone for any number of hours. Remember I said leadership matters?
lack of leadership. It leaves us vulnerable. And I frankly am of the opinion that you're better off acting than not acting, even if you make a mistake. If your house is on fire, you don't stand there and watch. I can barely contain myself about the passivity of the administration relative to Foley's murder. I'm having a hard time right now not going off. If my tracker wasn't here, I'd probably go off. You know, it seems to me that one of the responsibilities of the federal government is the lives and property and interests of individual Americans overseas. And we are being passive, and we will pay a price for this. So, now, as it relates to ISIS, privately and publicly, I've spoken for weeks about the need to do something about their reign of terror. If you expect to be able to have a dialogue with people whose stated intentions is to murder everybody in this room, then you are woefully ignorant and naive. And I am not going to stand around and wait unprepared for the day when they try to do just that. You elect me, I can tell you for a fact, lives and property of Americans is going to be protected. I will vote to hunt down every single one of those terrorists to my dying day. We have interests in the Middle East. You look at an arch, you got that rock at the top that holds the arch together. Capstone, thank you. The capstone in this is what happens in Jordan. If ISIS turns and enters Jordan, with 1.2 million refugees from the Syrian conflict and our close association and alliance with Jordan, we're in a problem. And I don't know what the president is going to prepare for. Bernie? By the way, before Bernie speaks, just want you to know I've only known him about 53 years. Well, your dad taught me how to play baseball, so.
The militarization of local police forces and what's going on nationally and also locally, because our sheriff's department has gotten some Davis. What's your thoughts on that? The federal government supplying those to them?
I think there's a very real concern that the ability of law enforcement to protect us is being outgunned or out-weaponized by bad guys. And I say bad guys, it could be drug cartels, it could be some gang, it could be anything. And I worry about that. I mean, I think back to that situation in Los Angeles where those guys all decked themselves out in body armor, and the police had to resort to headshots to put it into the problem. I am, however, trying to find that fine line between how much armament is appropriate for local police compared to how much is too much or too little. And we send these law enforcement personnel into some very, very dicey situations. I mean, I've been out on enough ride-alongs where you go to a house and both parties have been drinking and you just never know where it's going. That can really break down a hurt. I don't know the right answer, but I am not going to live in a police state. I'm not going to live in a place where I'm just not going to, income. And my house needs so. Yes, sir.
How does raising the minimum wage increase jobs?
Great question. When you find the answer, tell me. I've always looked at I mean, I don't know about you, but in my businesses, when a young person comes to me, I start them at minimum wage. And 90 days later, they either cut the mustard or they're tired of working for me. And I give them a raise. It's a training wage. It's not a living wage. And there's no point in trying to confuse a minimum wage with a living wage. I get why we work for and all that. But if we don't have some mechanism that allows employers to train new employees to the standards that they need to comply, how are we ever going to teach our young people how to work? Ever. And I can tell you for a fact, I hire most mainly young people, and it's generally their first job. And they spend the first 60 or 90 days working minimum wage. And they really, and one of the things, a couple of them say, well, I don't want to clean those bathrooms. Which I say, hey, I clean those bathrooms. You're going to clean those bathrooms. Or they say, I don't want to haul the garbage away. It stinks. I said, I cleaned that garbage up when I first got here. You can too. We have to have some means of training people to enter the workforce. It's a training means. It's not permanent employment. McDonald's, franchises in the room? Franchisees? Okay, so McDonald's, not only do they serve 90% of the meals served daily in this country to 330 million people, they also are the second largest organization in the world behind the Army of the People's Republic of China in terms of training young people. There are more young people trained at McDonald's than every other organization in the world except for the Army of the People's Republic of China. Think about that. And their average tenure is less than 3 years. And they start at the minimum wage, and they get moved up, and then they go on. They go to college, or they go to vocational school, or they go to another job. That's the market. So, does minimum wage create jobs? No. Does raising the minimum wage create jobs? No. I just don't see the evidence. Minimum wage gives young people a chance to get a job that they can then perfect and then move on to another job. So, and that's just from experience. I know that for a fact. Because I remember the first time I went to work, it was $1.65 an hour. So I was framing decks. In fact, I framed the deck at Rio Del Oro. So, for a guy named Renee, he was a little pain. Anyway, my time's up. Linda told me I had till 1:15. I'm 7 minutes over. I want to leave you with a couple things. Number one, I appreciate the fact that every day you all go out and try to make things better. That's precisely what I do. The problem that's bothering me today when I wake up is that it's no longer, what are we going to do today? It's, what are we going to do today? That needs to change. Right? That's why I'm running for Congress. That's why I need your help. Let's get this country back on track. Leadership matters. Go to the polls. Thanks for having me.